Public is being led to believe and to vote based on 30-second, 15-second sound bites. I don't think our students are any different than what I see in the general public. Granted, probably there are more in the general public that are reading the newspapers. The question is, are they reading the right newspapers, or are they reading just local news and not paying attention to the worldwide news or the other issues impacting us? But our students are getting their news from different sources. They're getting it online. They're getting them in quick hits, quick blurbs, paragraph here, paragraph there. But I actually don't think that our students are any different with regard to these trends than the general population. And unfortunately, we've rapidly become a soundbite culture instead of an analytical culture about the real issues that people need to dig into to figure out what does it really mean. Because as I found out in Washington many, many years ago, the devil's in the details of these programs. Who wins, who loses, who benefits, who doesn't. And you really need to know and pay attention to the potential effectiveness of it, instead of just throwing out little whims and throwing out little one-sentence policy discussions that are designed to bring people into the fold. I think it depends on the severity of the problems that we're facing. I think that in some ways, the more trivial the problems, the more they're politicized. I can honestly say there's a lot of people pointing their finger at Wall Street, saying the invisible hand didn't work. Deregulation has caused this. Who was in charge? You were in charge. Your fault. I do hear that, but I also hear Democrats and Republicans on both sides. The Democrats, I hear speeches by Democrats to do the bailout, speeches by Republicans to do the bailout. I hear speeches by Democrats not to do the bailout, and speeches by Republicans not to do the bailout. So in some ways, when you lift the level of severity of the crisis, I think, and the immediacy of the crisis that we're in, I think immediacy has got a big deal to do with what we're seeing today, that we're a little less likely to be partisan. Now, when we get into social issues, issues like abortion, we get into 10 Commandments in schools, others, I think they divide like they've always divided, down the middle of the lines. And they try to politicize the issue and perhaps make an issue like 10 Commandments in the schools far more important than it really is, as a deflection to address lots of other issues. So I think that partisanship comes and goes in waves. I think good presidents pull people together. They don't pull them apart. And that's one of the challenges of being a good president in a new administration, is how well can you pull people together and get people on both sides of the aisle to adopt policies, to adopt progressive strategies, and to be more visionary in their reaction and in their legislative capacities. I remember the president of the University of Michigan told me that he has a board that 8 of his 11 members are voted on by the people of Michigan. And at the time, his name was Jim Duderstadt. Jim Duderstadt had 4 members who were pro-union, people that were voted by the pro-union forces in Michigan. And he had 4 that were conservative anti-abortion members that were put on his board because the voters voted him in. They weren't interested, he said, in the University of Michigan. They weren't interested in what the University of Michigan was doing. They were interested in their issues. And that indirectly touched the University of Michigan in a variety of ways. But they were on those boards to promote their agendas. And the problem was, this is the University of Michigan's management board. And it's kind of hard to get the business done to the University of Michigan when everybody's promoting their own self-issue that got them elected. And I think single-issue people make dangerous politicians, because ideology makes a dangerous politician, especially in difficult times, because we need practical answers. A lot of issues are easily criticized, but one thing we do here is that if you're going to criticize something that's going on campus, also, by the way, throw in a solution. Tell us what you think might make a good solution, because it's easier to criticize say something's bad than it is to develop something that's better. And that's the kind of politicians that we need to have. We need to have constructive politicians who know where the bad things are, where the bad policies are, what's not working. But they also need to not just criticize because it belongs to that party and it never worked, but to tell people what would you do instead.